The night the storm rolled into the city, Damien Blackwood was standing on the rooftop of his 70-story empire, staring into the lightning-filled sky as if it owed him answers. Billionaire, visionary, and the man every business rival prayed would one day fall. But none of them hated him as much as one person, Senator Victor Veyra, a man powerful enough to start wars and ruthless enough to finish them. And yet, fate was about to introduce Damien to the one person he was never supposed to meet, the one person who could ruin him without even trying, the senator's daughter. Her name was Victor Veyra. But the world didn't meet her the night she was born. The world met her the night Damien almost died. It started with a crash, metal grinding, tires screaming. Damien's car spun across the rain-soaked highway like a toy flung by an angry child. And in the eerie silence that followed, he opened his eyes to see a pair of headlights rushing toward him. Then, darkness. When he woke up, he wasn't in a hospital. He wasn't surrounded by security. He wasn't even in his own world. He was lying on a small velvet couch, wrapped in a soft blanket that smelled faintly of vanilla and something floral, something warm. A gentle voice whispered, "You're safe. Don't move yet." He blinked hard. The room was dim, lit only by a single lamp and a silhouette sitting beside him. He shifted, trying to sit up, and pain shot through his ribs. "Easy," the voice said. Again, softer this time. "You hit your head pretty badly." She stepped into the light, and for a moment, Damien forgot how to breathe. Selene Veyra was not what he expected the daughter of his enemy to look like. There was no coldness, no sharpness, no trace of the family legacy that fed on destruction. She was warmth, quiet strength, eyes that studied him not with suspicion, but with concern. "Who?" Damien whispered, voice dry. "Who are you?" "Area," she said simply. "I found you unconscious near the cliffs. The ambulance would have taken too long, so I brought you here." He frowned. "You carried me?" She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "Dragged is the more accurate term." He couldn't help it. He smiled, just a little. Selene looked relieved. "I'm going to get you some water. Don't try to stand." When she stepped out of the room, Damien stared at the ceiling, trying to piece together what had happened. Was it an accident or something else? The crash felt too sudden, too precise, too familiar. He'd lived long enough to know the difference between coincidence and intent. And right now, everything inside him whispered one word: intent. Selene returned with a glass of water. "Slow sips, you're still shaking." He took it from her, but his eyes stayed on her face. She looked young, but not naive. Beautiful, but not in a loud way. More like a quiet sunrise you stumble upon when the world still feels asleep. "Why did you help me?" Damien asked softly. "Because you needed help," she replied simply. "That's usually enough." People had helped Damien before, for money, for influence, for fear of his name, but never because it was simply the right thing to do. He studied her again. Something tugged at his memory, something familiar about her features, her voice, her last name. "Selene," he said slowly. "What's your last name?" She hesitated, just for a second, barely noticeable. "Veyra." The glass nearly slipped from his hand. Damien's pulse thudded, his breath tightened, his mind echoed with the reputation of the man who had sworn to destroy him, Victor Veyra, the senator, the wolf in a tailored suit. And this girl, this gentle, soft-spoken girl, was his daughter? Arya noticed the change in his expression. "What's wrong?" Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Too long. Because the truth was simple. If she knew who he was, she never would have helped him. If she knew what her father had done, she wouldn't let him stay. He forced a steady breath. Nothing, he lied. Just the pain. Selene nodded, accepting the answer without pushing. You should rest, at least for tonight. By morning, the roads will be clear and you can leave. Leave. But he didn't want to. Not yet. Something about her felt like the calm he hadn't tasted in years. She turned off the lamp and walked toward the door. If you need anything, just call out. I'll be in the next room. When the door closed, Damien exhaled slowly. His mind raced, trying to figure out how the daughter of his greatest enemy ended up saving his life, how she ended up being nothing like him. Lightning flashed outside the window, thunder rolled in, and for the first time in a long time, Damien felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not anger, something much more dangerous. Curiosity. What kind of life did Selene live under a man like Veyra? Why did she speak with softness when her father spoke with fire? Why did she look at him like he wasn't a threat? He closed his eyes, trying to quiet the storm inside him. But one thought refused to fade. He wasn't supposed to feel anything for the daughter of a man determined to destroy him. And yet, he was already beginning to do so. Outside, footsteps paused near the door. Hers. As if she wanted to check on him. As if she cared. Damien felt something shift inside him. A small, silent moment that left a mark. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "This is gonna get complicated." And he was right. Because the next morning, everything would change again, and Selene Veyra would discover exactly who she had brought into her home. And Damien, Adrian, would learn the truth about why he crashed that night. And both truths would pull them into a storm far more dangerous than the one outside. A storm born from secrets, enemies, and a forbidden connection neither of them could escape. Morning came with a pale light that barely touched the city skyline, but it lit the tension in Damien's mind like a spotlight. He lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail from the night before. The crash, Area, the way she looked at him, like he was human, not a target. A knock at the door jolted him upright. "Come in," he called, his voice gruff, still hoarse from the accident. Area entered, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You survived the night," she said, setting one down on the small table beside him. "That's a good start." Damien took the cup but didn't drink. "Why did you help me?" he asked again, softer this time, almost pleading. She tilted her head. "Because sometimes the right thing doesn't care who the person is." Her words, simple, innocent, dangerous. They made him think about everything he thought he knew about his life, about enemies, about trust, about love, and about her. Damien's phone buzzed, a dozen missed calls, messages from his assistant, his security team, his lawyers, all urgent, all demanding answers. He ignored them, for now. "Your father, Victor Veyra. You know who I am, right?" Selene's eyes flickered for just a heartbeat. I know the name." She didn't say more, but Damien felt it, the hesitation, the tension, the invisible wall between them that wasn't there last night. He leaned forward, gripping the coffee cup. "Do you know what he's capable of?" "Yes," she whispered. "I've seen enough." A shiver ran down his spine. He realized she wasn't naive. She knew, and yet she had saved him, risked everything. Before he could press further, the quiet was shattered by a sharp knock. Louder this time, more insistent. Selene's eyes widened. I'll handle it," she said, moving to the door. Damien followed,
every nerve alert. When she opened it, two men in black suits stepped inside, but they didn't look like bodyguards. They looked like trouble. Their eyes scanned the room, stopping on Damien. Recognition flickered, like they knew exactly who he was. Selene stepped in front of him, her voice calm but firm. "He's a guest. Leave." One of the men smirked. "Senator Veyra will want to see him. Now." Damien's heart thumped. His instincts screamed to run, but he stayed, because Selene's hand on his arm, just for a moment, held him in place. "Let me guess," Damien said quietly, almost to himself. "This isn't just about me surviving a crash, is it?" Selene's jaw tightened. "It's never just about you." The men exchanged a glance. "He's coming," one said, and in that moment, Damien understood. There was no escape. Not here, not now, not with Selene. He looked at her. "You're risking a lot." She didn't answer immediately. She only gave a faint, almost sad smile. "Sometimes you risk everything for someone who shouldn't even matter to you." Damien felt it. The pull, the tension, the impossible magnetism between them. And for the first time, he didn't care about enemies or deals or power. He only cared about her.
And that was dangerous, because the next moment the door opened wider, and in walked Victor Veyra, tall, imposing, eyes like steel. Every inch of him radiated control, authority, and fury. He stopped when he saw Damien. For a heartbeat, the room froze. The air thickened. Even Selene seemed to shrink slightly under her father's presence. "Damien Blackwood," Victor said, his voice low but sharp. "I didn't expect to find you in my home." Damien rose slowly, every instinct telling him to retreat, but his pride and something else held him in place. "I could say the same about you, Senator." Victor's gaze snapped to Selene. "And you?" he said, voice harder now. "What the hell are you thinking?" She started, but he cut her off. "Don't lie to me, Selene. You brought him here. You saved him. Do you even understand what you've done?" Damien felt the tension coil around him like a tightening rope. He had faced enemies before, but none with this kind of fire. None who made the world itself feel small and lethal. "I understand exactly what I did," Selene said, voice steadier than he expected. "I saved someone who needed help. That's all." Victor laughed, low, bitter. "That's not all, and you know it. You've just made my problems personal." Damien's stomach tightened. He realized that every move from now on would be a dance on a knife's edge. One wrong step, and everything could explode. But then, something unexpected happened. Selene stepped forward, closer to Damien. "I don't care about your wars, Dad. Not anymore. Not with him." Victor's face darkened, like a storm about to break. And Damien, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Because despite the danger, despite the fury, despite the world telling them to hate each other, there was something electric, unshakable, between them. A connection that could ignite or destroy. And as the tension reached a peak, Damien realized one thing with terrifying clarity. He was already in too deep. The storm outside the window raged, but inside, an even bigger storm had begun. One that wouldn't end, not for anyone. And the first rules of surviving it would be written tonight. Victor's glare cut through the air like a blade. "Selene," he said, slowly, each word deliberate. "You're making a mistake, a dangerous one." Selene didn't flinch, not even slightly. "And you, Dad, are making the same mistake you've been making all your life, judging everyone before they even breathe." Damien watched, fascinated, not just by her courage, but by the way she stood up to her father. It was reckless, defiant, and terrifying.
Victor's fists clenched. Defiance can get you killed, or worse, ruin someone you care about. Damien's pulse quickened. That someone you care about felt pointed, almost as if Victor knew about the tiny shift between him and Selene. And maybe he did. For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. The storm outside the window matched the storm inside the room, every flash of lightning illuminating the lines of tension on Victor's face. Damien felt like prey and predator all at once. Then, Victor spoke again, voice lower, more dangerous. Damien Blackwood, you don't belong in this world. Not mine, not hers. Leave, now. Damien's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue. He wanted to walk away. But something in him rebelled. Maybe it was the lingering warmth of Selene's presence. Maybe it was the sharp, undeniable connection he felt between them. And I know, I'm not going anywhere, Damien said quietly but firmly. Victor's eyes narrowed. You're not just risking yourself. You're risking her. Everything about her life. Victor's gaze met Selene's. She didn't look scared. Not really. There was fire in her eyes, the same fire that had defied her father, the same fire that had saved him last night. And Damien? He realized he was willing to risk everything too. Victor stepped closer, his presence commanding, suffocating. Do you understand what you're doing? Do you even know who you're messing with?
Damien leaned slightly forward, a faint smirk forming. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, and I also know who I'm willing to fight for. Selene's breath caught. Her hand brushed lightly against Damien's, almost imperceptibly, but enough to make him feel the spark that neither of them could ignore. Victor's lips tightened. You're blind if you think this fantasy of yours will survive in my world. Damien's pulse quickened. Then I guess we'll have to see who survives. The words hung in the air, dangerous and magnetic. Selene looked at him, her heart racing, knowing that she was standing on the edge of a choice that could shatter her world or build a new one. Victor turned, his long coat swirling as he moved to the door. Enjoy your rebellion while it lasts. One wrong move, and everything you love, will burn. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving silence in his wake. Damien exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. Well, he said, attempting lightness. That went well. Selene gave a small laugh, but it was brittle. He's terrifying. And he just made it impossible for me to leave. Not that I want to. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the world outside, the storms, the enemies, the danger, it all faded. For a heartbeat, it was just them. Selene's lips parted. Damien, I shouldn't. What shouldn't you? He asked, stepping closer, careful not to cross a line, though the line felt thinner with every second. You shouldn't care about me, she whispered, voice trembling. Damien reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. I can't help it, he said quietly. Not since last night. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Her heartbeat echoed in his ears, loud and unrelenting. Before either could say more, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Both jumped slightly, the spell broken. Selene hesitated, then whispered, It's probably him. My father. Damien's eyes narrowed. Then we need a plan. Fast. Selene bit her lip, thinking. There's a back exit. Old servant's passage. I can get you out if it comes to that, but it's risky. Damien smiled faintly, tension mixing with amusement. Risky is my middle name. She rolled her eyes, but there was a hint of a smile. You're really impossible. And she was right. Impossible, dangerous, tempting, everything he shouldn't be drawn to, and yet he was drawn anyway. As the two of them plodded silently, the storm outside subsided, but inside,
A far greater storm was brewing, one that involved love, betrayal, and a game neither of them fully understood yet. A storm that would change everything. And Damien, he was ready to play. Night had fully fallen when Damien and Selene moved silently through the mansion's shadowed corridors. Every step was calculated, every sound amplified in the stillness. They weren't just sneaking past a father. Victor Veyra wasn't a man who tolerated mistakes. And tonight, Damien understood exactly why. "This way," she whispered, glancing back nervously. "The passage is old, but it leads straight to the servants' quarters. From there, you can slip out." Damien followed closely, his senses alert. The adrenaline coursing through him wasn't just from danger, it was from her, from the way her hand brushed his as they moved, the subtle tilt of her head, the way her hair caught the dim light. Every little detail pulled him deeper, and he knew he wasn't the only one feeling it. Selene stopped suddenly, pressing her finger to her lips. Damien froze. A shadow moved at the end of the hall. A security guard. Too young, probably new, nervous, but enough to jeopardize their escape. "Go," she whispered, pushing him lightly. He hesitated, but she moved closer, her body brushing against him, and something in him shifted. He reached out instinctively, steadying her as they ducked behind a pillar. Her eyes met his, wide, heart racing, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just them.
Then the guard's flashlight swung dangerously close. They held their breath. "Now," Selene hissed. Damien darted forward, pulling her along, adrenaline pushing them faster than either thought possible. They rounded a corner and stumbled into the servants' passage, hidden and narrow. The air was thick with dust and old wood, the kind of place where secrets like to linger. "You shouldn't have brought me here," Damien said between quick breaths. Selene shook her head. "I had no choice, and neither did you." He glanced at her. "Do you even know what your father would do if he found me?" "Yes," she said softly. "And that's why I'm risking everything, because if I didn't, I'd regret it forever." Her words hit him harder than any threat from Victor Veyra ever could. Regret. She was saying she trusted him in a world built on betrayal. They reached a small door at the end of the passage. Damien tried the handle. Locked. Arya bit her lip. "It's always locked from the inside, but there's a key. I'm not sure if I should." Adrian took her hand. "Then let me." She looked at him, eyes searching his. Something unspoken passed between them. A warning, a plea, a spark. "Be careful," she whispered. "I always am," he replied, but his eyes betrayed him. He wasn't just careful, he was captivated. The key turned, the door creaked open, revealing the night beyond, the quiet streets, the promise of escape. But before they could step out, a voice froze them, low, sharp, controlled. "You really thought it would be that easy?" Victor Veyra stood in the shadows of the doorway, rain dripping from his coat, eyes blazing with fury. Behind him, more security guards closed in, surrounding the mansion. Damien's heart pounded. This was no longer about escape. It was about survival and desire. Selene stepped closer to Damien instinctively, a shield and a confession all at once. "I told you I couldn't let them hurt you." Victor's gaze flicked between them. "Do you have any idea what you're doing, Selene?" Her chin lifted. "I know exactly what I'm doing." Damien felt the pull between them tighten. The danger only made the connection stronger. The thrill of rebellion and the forbidden attraction mingling into something raw, uncontainable. Victor's expression darkened. "Both of you. Don't make me destroy everything you care about." Damien's jaw tightened. "Try me," he said, almost daring the man to act. For a heartbeat, silence fell. The rain outside pattered against the windows like a ticking clock. Then Victor's lips curled into a tight, dangerous smile. "You're both going to learn," he said slowly. "The world doesn't bend for love, especially not mine."
Selene shivered, but she didn't move away. Damien's hand found hers, gripping tightly, a silent promise. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. And in that moment, Damien knew there was no going back. Not from the danger, not from the attraction, not from her. The storm outside mirrored the one inside them, fierce, unrelenting, impossible to ignore. And the real war was just beginning. Because in a world of billionaires, enemies, and secrets, sometimes the greatest danger comes not from your rivals, but from your heart. The rain fell harder now, drumming against the windows like a relentless warning. Damien held Selene close, their backs pressed against the cold brick of the servants' passage, hearts pounding in unison. Every instinct screamed that Victor Veyra would not let this escape go unpunished. "Damien," Arya whispered, her voice trembling but determined. "We can't keep running. Sooner or later, he'll catch us, and when he does—" "I know," Damien interrupted softly, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. "But we don't run from him. We face him together." She looked up at him, her eyes wide, vulnerable, and yet unafraid. "Together?" He nodded. "Together. No more hiding, no more secrets. If he wants a war, he'll get one, but I'm not leaving you behind." For a heartbeat, they stood like that, two hearts tethered in the eye of the storm. And then the footsteps came, heavier, closer. Victor, approaching. Damien slipped his hand into Arya's, squeezing it. "On my mark," he murmured. They burst through the servants' passage into the side yard, rain lashing at their faces, wind whipping around them. Security guards scrambled to intercept them, but Damien's mind was already calculating, moving faster than anyone around him. "Split!" Damien yelled, pulling Selene toward the shadows of the fountain. She hesitated. "Now!" he shouted. They darted in opposite directions. Damien drew attention, dodging and weaving, buying precious seconds. And then, almost as if fate itself favored them, Arya found the old carriage parked behind the hedge. She jumped in. Damien was there a second later, breathless, soaked, and dangerous. He shoved the driverless carriage into motion, the wheels crunching against the gravel, and for a brief, electric moment, they were free. But freedom was fleeting. The headlights of Victor's car appeared in the distance, slicing through the rain. "Hold on!" Damien shouted. Selene gripped the edge of the carriage, knuckles white. "You're insane!" "And you like it," he replied, a grin breaking through the tension. The chase was relentless. Rain blurred their vision, thunder crashed around them, and every second felt like a lifetime. Victor was close, too close, but Adrian's driving skill and sheer instinct kept them ahead. Finally, the carriage hit the edge of the private dock. Boats bobbed in the storm-tossed water. Damien didn't hesitate. He leapt to the largest yacht, hauling Selene with him. The engines roared to life, slicing through the waves, leaving Victor and his fury behind. Inside, drenched and trembling, Selene laughed, a soft, incredulous sound. "You really are impossible."
Damien smiled, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face again. "I told you, I'm worth the risk." She looked at him, heart racing, mind still processing the danger, the thrill, the impossible connection between them. "And I'm willing to take that risk too," she whispered. The storm outside raged on, but inside, the tension dissolved into something else, something electric, something undeniable. Their lips met in a soft, tentative kiss at first, then deeper, hungrier. Every second, every danger, every forbidden heartbeat led to this. But even as they embraced, Damien knew the war wasn't over. Victor Veyra wouldn't stop, not until one of them broke. And yet, for the first time in his life, Damien realized that some risks were worth it. Arya pulled back slightly, resting her forehead against his. "Promise me," she said softly. "Whatever happens, we face it together." "I promise," Damien replied, his voice steady, unwavering. For a moment, the storm seemed to pause. Lightning flashed across the horizon, illuminating them on the deck of the yacht, two hearts defiant against a world determined to keep them apart. And then the rain came again, washing over them, cold and relentless, but somehow cleansing. Damien held her close. No more running, no more hiding. From now on, it's just us, against everything. Selene smiled through the raindrops. "I can live with that," she said, voice soft, trembling, yet full of fire. The yacht cut through the waves, carrying them away from danger, toward a future neither could have predicted, but one they were willing to fight for. Because in a world of billionaires, enemies, and secrets, sometimes the greatest gamble isn't money or power. Sometimes it's love. And Damien Blackwood had just placed his entire heart on the line. The storm raged around them, but inside, a new world had begun, one where forbidden love, courage, and defiance burned brighter than any enemy could ever extinguish. And as the yacht disappeared into the dark horizon, one truth was clear. The billionaire and the enemy's daughter were unstoppable together. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, share, and subscribe to Golden Billionaire Stories, where every tale drips with luxury, power, and passion. Because here, love always comes with a price.